Record. Sorry. I was thinking, oh my God, should I say something? Okay, so anyway, so
Again, it's like barely alive in Wonderland, barely recording, like barely managing.
okay. So anyway, so family constellations is all about looking at a pattern that's been going on in a family dynamic and basically seeking out understanding that dynamic and seeking if we can figure out a way to shift a dynamic or to shift a family or to shift something. And as a collective, we have so many of these dynamics that are constantly playing out. And each culture, each group of people has their own dynamic that it's not just your dynamic, by the way, that's playing out. It ends up being kind of a cultural thing. There's a certain thing of trauma, there's a certain type of ancestral trauma. And then it applies to a certain group of people. So, for example, as Jews, we have this collective Holocaust trauma, so much so, right? And then, different groups, depending on where we are, as women, we have a certain type of way that we are experiencing ourselves and as through the world. And as men, there's a certain narrative that we're holding. So every actually individual, and then every larger group of people, and then every larger group of people from that is sharing and basically living out their own type of story, their own type of narrative. And that's what's being played out. And it's actually not even your narrative. You're actually part of a bigger system and a bigger something that needs to be resolved and that needs to be fixed, so to speak, that needs to be healed. It doesn't need to be fixed, it needs to be healed. And so every time you're in a dynamic or we're in a dynamic and we're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so frustrating. Why can't I get out of this dynamic? Like I want to rip my hair out." Chances are that you're not just in your own pattern.
At best, you want to rip your hair out. At worst, you want to rip their hair out.
Right. Somebody's hair. Somebody you want to like choke somebody. And it's probably because it's not even your dynamic. It's actually something that is so deeply ingrained in yours, in your parents, in your ancestral, in the collective that you're just like, I can't get out of this because this is something I know so well because I can't just change it because it's something, the pattern, the repetition, the issue, the mother-daughter, right? Like was something that we spoke about. Sometimes it's mother-son, sometimes it's husband-wife, sometimes it's like their grandpa, like there's all these different dynamics. Sometimes it's just a group of people. Sometimes, so we're looking at these huge dynamics and these things that are influencing the collective, and that's what affects us. So, anything about that, Tila? Like, or should I just move on? I feel like
You're doing such a great job.
thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, yes, yes.
So, hi, do you, is it really necessary to understand it to shift it? That's like something that I've been wondering for a while.
That's a great question. Tila, do you want to?
I think it's there's some issues that need to be, first of all, it needs to be identified in order to shift it. So
Okay, right.
understanding it, if you want to, the whole, it's like usually it's basically it's a rabbit hole. Okay, now you go down that rabbit hole, you're in that dynamic, and it raises all these things. So like when Jodi and I play out a dynamic, it takes a while until we're actually realizing that we're playing out a dynamic. And once we have realized that we play out a dynamic, then we start clearing everything that's related to it. So just a great opportunity to clear things. So we see, oh, this is related to this. This is a past life. This is your past life thing. This is my past life thing. This is a collective thing. So we just start clearing whatever comes up, whatever's down that rabbit hole. So it's an opportunity. Sometimes we need to understand issues more in depth, the dynamic more in depth in order for it to be cleared. And the idea is that once any of us clears something, whether you recognize a dynamic and clear it just by your intention, or we recognize a dynamic and recognize it by an intention, it actually affects the collective and all the people related to the dynamic, because it's everyone who resonates on that level is affected. We're all affected by each other, so we're all actually doing what we can to help the collective, either consciously or subconsciously, or we're kind of bringing other people down with our dynamics. So it's this
Yeah.
how do we call it, what's the word, Jodi?
Yeah, no, it's this constant like we're
Connected.
all connected. So it's this
Yeah.
constant And so that's why like the more people are in a dynamic or the more there's awareness, which is
And that's why what basically want to raise our vibration. That's the idea to kind of rise above it every time, and whether we can pull up with us consciously or subconsciously or whatever the universe decides, we're just hoping to raise a general vibration to help as much people move out of things.
yeah. So for example, like when we're going to talk about one dynamic now, for example, that we thought is really important. And
Which one? I don't remember that.
God, are you kidding me?
Like,
Forget it. You'll just have to watch like everybody else then.
did we?
So the point is that yeah, because there's an issue. There are themes, aren't there? Do you want to just
Ah, okay,
choose?
yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. I kind of
Okay, so
vaguely remember.
yeah, great. I'm so happy. So that's the other thing, right? Is the more that this is what we notice too, like, is that the more you're in a dynamic, and this is really important, is the more you're in a dynamic, and then you turn around, you're like, I never said that, or I can't believe I would do that, or what's that about, or that's so not me. The thing is, the more that you're actually having these exchanges or interactions that are not even you, right? Well, the more you go down and repeat them over and over and over, they kind of turn into you because you're constantly feeding in and feeling out and taking out from that vibration.
And you're identifying with it. So
Exactly.
the more you identify with it, also becomes a
Yeah.
part of it.
So that's why it's better to kind of lurk around and say, "Wow, I'm in a dynamic. Like I want to kind of get out of this
Because
dynamic."
like this dynamic, for instance, is not our dynamic. Like just saying.
Yeah. It's better.
Yeah. Let's see, whose is it? Family, your side family. Usually it's your side.
Right. It's always
Uh,
like my somebody from my side. We don't even have
your
to say,
parents. So let's clear that.
okay, this,
Yeah,
this, this,
yeah,
whatever this
yeah.
is. Okay. I don't even know what that was.
Uh,
So,
I wonder if your mom's watching.
baby, and she'll recognize it. And that's the
You
other
know, you
thing.
know.
And then you're like, wait, get me out of this. Okay, so now the other theme that I really think is important is that I've been thinking a lot about and that we've been talking a lot about is so we're working on clearing and shifting dynamics. So we talk about masculine, feminine a lot, and we talk about this role between masculine and feminine, and also like specifically, we work a lot with women, and so I would really like I think it's really important to talk about the role that women have, whether we recognize it like consciously or subconsciously, and how we affect our everybody in our world. And this is something so amazing that I kind of was a part of the other day around talking about a family constellation, because the Jewish narrative is very much one of like perpetrator and victim, because so many people lost family in the Holocaust. And because of that, there's this kind of like connection with understanding of what it means to be a victim and also recognizing that we don't want to be victims anymore. That sounds pretty horrible. And so we're kind of moving into like, what is it to not be a victim? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And at the same time, it looks like when somebody, so if there are two choices, either becoming a perpetrator or becoming a victim, it looks, or being a victim or being a perpetrator, it looks like we want to do our best to kind of say, well, I don't want to be a victim. A perpetrator sounds bad, but at least then I won't be a victim. And so I'll do whatever I can to kind of like remain in that. And so as women, we kind of notice this, look at this in our lives quite often. We're either taking a certain role, and we play both parts, right? But there's always this role of kind of like perpetrator victim, right? Like, and how is it to soften, and how is it to kind of like stand up to ourselves, and what does that look like, and what does that feel like? And
And
so
by the
often,
way, also in the political environment today, the way Israel is portrayed as a perpetrator, a victim, and the whole 7th of October, it also plays up on that you have the macro, the larger, you can see it on all different scales, on all different levels. Either it's in your individual home, or you can also see it on a national level, like
yeah,
globally.
exactly. And so everybody's angry at the victims, and then angry when they become perpetrators, and angry that all of a sudden they're shifting roles. And what is that about? And actually, like it's so interesting because the answer of healing is, and a perpetrator identifying with a victim, or kind of identifying and understanding and softening a little bit, actually comes from women. And I saw this like amazing thing is, if you want to imagine, let's say somebody who's doing something really horrible, And you can imagine, and whatever that looks like to you, there's somebody who in this case is standing, there's a perpetrator and he's standing above somebody, a victim. So you want to imagine a victim kind of like lying on the floor, and there's a perpetrator who's standing there and who's kind of standing there and feels like he's the aggressor in whatever way. And you kind of can imagine how that feels and how that looks like as a perpetrator is doing that, and how the victim feels even more victimized, and how the perpetrator feels like he has to be in control and has to be strong and has to be, clear and all that like that. And then you can imagine, let's say, the perpetrator's mother, this woman kind of standing, however she looks to you, you can imagine kind of closing your eyes and seeing like the perpetrator's mother standing behind the perpetrator. And now the perpetrator with his mother standing behind him, giving him love, giving him support, seeing him for whatever it is that he's doing, all of a sudden his energy kind of starts to soften. And then he kind of turns around and says, "Oh, like, who is this?" And might even look at his victim, and then might even kind of like kneel down to the victim, and might even kind of sit down and maybe even lay down and recognize that, wow, like all of this, when my mother's kind of like behind me, there's something around me that's able to soften, and ultimately identifying and also recognizing that he can let go. And so the idea of
And
women,
that's just
yeah,
I just want to say that's a process that you do in family constellation where you just you're setting up a scene, okay? And then you're setting the scene up in your imagination, but then you observe the scene without controlling it. And when you add like different components to the scene, like you have the perpetrator, you had the victim, and you're observing them both, and then you just add like the one variable with it, which is the mother, and you just observe what happens without controlling it within your imagination. That's when that's what happens, what Jodi describes. So I'm just saying that for to
yeah.
give.
No, that's great, because so much of it we think that we have to plan, but with the family concept,
Like when we
play out.
imagine a scene, that we need to play out the scene or we need to control it. But actually it's, and also when you connect to your intuition, it's that you set up, like you set up a certain scene or you set up a scenario, like you're meeting someone tomorrow. Okay, so you can just imagine the meeting and the setting, so you set it up, but then you just let go and you just observe. And that's when you start connecting to your intuition, and when you get that information of what's going to, how that meeting might look like and how that feels like, and then if you don't like what you see, you can change one variable. You say, okay, maybe if I bring a friend, okay, if this it's a meeting, I'll bring a friend with me. So you put the friend into that scene that you've made in your imagination, and then you just step back and observe, and then you see how that feels and how that plays out. So it's also the way you connect to your intuition, and you can sort of read a situation clairvoyantly or psychically, is by using that. That's a very good tool.
Yeah, that sounds great, because it's true. So much of what I do is that, and I'm sure people do that like all the time. How's it going to be? What am I going to do? What am I going to look like? Think about even a job interview. What am I going to wear? Thinking about, but not even that, thinking about having a discussion with a child or thinking about a meeting with somebody. And you say, okay, now we're sitting together. What is that going to be? And then psychically, intuitively, you can tap into a future experience without the emotional component of it. Or maybe the emotions come up and they come up to see what's might come up at the time. So once we do that, for example, in this family constellation, then you're able to actually change things in real life, just real life, in the physical world. Just like actually everything that's going on energetically, it actually has an impact on it in the physical reality. So the more you're telling yourself that something's going to be a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way, a dynamic is going to be shifted in a certain way, the more it actually plays out in real life. And that's why, our own intuition is so important, and what we look at and how we plan and our thoughts and our feelings and all those things are so important, because they actually affect, ultimately, like on the physical level, so many things that end up shifting, and so many things that can be healed. So this dynamic between this, like, that masculine, or somebody who's a perpetrator, or somebody who's in that victim, non-victim, somebody who wants things done a certain way and somebody who feels like a victim, that dynamic that gets played out, it gets played out a lot. It gets played out in all those different areas, like Tehilla was saying. And we were bringing it up because we're constantly looking at it and shifting it and trying to heal parts of it. and looking at it as women, looking at it from so many different angles because it's something that needs like resolution, and it needs healing. So looking at this one dynamic and understanding that a mother can actually bring in some sort of healing, because as mothers we're able to look at things, we're able to tap into things, we're able to give love all the time. And so it's only through love do things ultimately shift. And it's not that rigidity, it's about the woman's intuition and her flow and her love and that unconditional love that ends up supporting and guiding and nourishing and changing the behaviors of different dynamics and different people as they exist. So that's really like the big thing kind of. No, Tila, like what did you say? Like that's what we've
Yeah, I
constantly.
think I think once we understand as women how powerful we are, and there's always there's that story about Mother Teresa, I think, and it was they asked if she would join a protest against war. She was like, no, she won't join a protest against war. She might join a protest for peace. So,
Yeah.
so the idea of that if we don't focus so much on what we're resisting, and by actually focusing on whatever we focus, we actually increase. Okay, so if we focus on what we're resisting, then we're actually strengthening it and empowering it. So the idea is to instead of focusing on behaviors that we don't want, we should be focusing on our roles as women, as being loving and nurturing. And it's not always easy, okay? So it's also loving and nurturing ourselves, but the idea is that we need to understand how powerful we are, because it's not about standing in front of the tank, and stopping the tank. It's about, coming from a completely different place. And like I said earlier, it's about raising the vibration. By raising the vibration, by our awareness and raising the vibration, coming from a higher intention, that's how we pull everything. We actually pull, bring, we raise reality. Okay, we raise the physical world.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's true. We see all these people and they're like fighting against, and then they're getting swept up by all that energy. It's like creating this thing in my throat because you're never even louder than everybody else. It's like you're fighting, and it's like who can drown out a war? Who could drown out like that vibration of war? That's a vibration. The vibration of arguments, that's a vibration. Like everything is a vibration. So you can choose to disengage, and that's the best, is you can choose to disengage and have a different vibe, like have a different experience, of, oh wow. And that's what women have, spaces that are so often, when you walk into your grandma's house, I don't know, my grandma's house, grandma's house is a certain way,
Well, assuming there's no grandpa.
Right, right. But grandma's house, grandma
Assuming
works
grandpa
hard.
passed away for many years, so grandma made a great space for herself.
It's the funniest thing. Like I always think when we bought our house, we bought it. What? No, no, I didn't buy a house. We had to move, and we had this realtor, and her name was Rayanne, and she's this like tough German woman, and she's like really tough and like amazing. And she says to me, though, she says to me, oh my God, she says to me. I had just had my son. He was like a month old, and we had to find a house. And she says to me, oh, I remember my son. I think she was German. Or no, she was working, she was renting the house for this family who was German. She herself wasn't German. She was renting this house for this German family. And she
To
says
the
to me,
point. Can you get to the point?
yeah, but I just have to sit and feel into her, right? And I like love that woman. Okay, okay. So she says to me, my husband, I go, well, and I kind of did it. And I was so nervous. And I was there with my son, who was a month old. And my mom came with me to look at the house. And she says to me, to be honest with you, she says, my husband was away at war for the first 9 months of my baby's life. And she goes, and it was the best thing that had ever happened. She goes, you didn't even meet his baby until he was 9 months old. And she was this woman who like had her own everything. She had everything like together and was like just tough and clear. And she set up the vibe of exactly how she wanted it to be, you know? And I think like as women, we have so much of an idea of what we want. And there's like a softness that women genuinely want to bring in, or a softness or clarity. And women also have this intuitive flow, you know, and of nurturing and of giving. There's so many things that women have that they want to kind of bring in and bring into a space. And I think that this is something that like everybody on the planet actually wants. It's not just something that it's like something that kids want from their moms. It's something that women want from other women. It's something that women want from their mothers and from their grandmothers. It's like this collective divine feminine vibe that exists that women have that is so that's like it's this incredible thing. And so the more and what we're saying is the more that you recognize it not only on other people but also recognizing it on yourself, like every woman has it. And so often we don't recognize that we even have it in the first place. And so the more we see it on ourselves and the more we recognize and tell other women also, we recognize their strengths and we recognize what they are and we recognize that divine that exists within them. It's this like really powerful thing. And that's what can ultimately heal the collective. It can ultimately heal the collective men, can ultimately heal collective women. It can ultimately heal the collective is this women, this divine love and nurturing and love. It's really love that supports the whole planet. So that's kind of our share. I don't know, Tila, it's like,
Listen, I'm just, when you spoke, I'm
oh,
just thinking about a womb. Okay, so when you have a really great feminine space, which is it's the equivalent of a womb, and the whole idea of a womb is that it's just like the safe, nurturing space, and it allows for whatever needs to grow to grow. That's the idea. So basically, a woman creates the space and the conditions for each person to grow into who they're supposed to be without controlling them. So the idea is giving space for everyone to become just the way they are without forcing anything, just like we're observing, like when we do a psychic reading, so we want to be observing. So the same way is that you create the space and you observe what comes out, but you don't try to consciously control and guide the outcome. And that's the feminine. Whereas the masculine is more like a controlling and trying to mold everything the way the masculine, thinks it should be.
and every person has the feminine masculine within them.
Yeah.
So it's also within our own balance too. It's not just like a not every woman, there's constantly a balance of how masculine and how feminine am I supposed to be in this moment? Am I going to have goals, rigidity, structure, or am I going to kind of be so flowy and nothing kind of gets done? And so we have our own thing within ourselves. So it's like that divine masculine and feminine play out within each one of us, and then it plays out as well. And we're constantly seeking to find this balance between masculine and feminine so that we can be in flow and things can also get done, so to speak, right? So that we can be and we can do. So there's always these kind of back forth masculine feminine things that show up within our world, right? And so our whole thing is all about trying to find the balance between the two is what it looks like. So what do you want, like, where are we thinking? Do you want to,
Yeah, anyone have a question?
nobody ever
No.
has questions. We like,
Okay, no questions. No, it was because we were so clear. We were crystal clear.
okay, that sounds great. Okay, anything, I mean, otherwise we can just kind of, what are you thinking? Anything we should do? Anything going on?
What do you suggest?
I don't know. I feel like that was a lot. I don't know. I don't think it's playing a dynamic. I don't think it's talking about a specific person. I don't think it's kind of like doing a reading like thing. Is there something you want to
It's
do?
there's an energetic thing that we need to do. What you spoke about, the aligning the divine masculine, divine feminine. Do you remember
Oh
that
yeah,
whole
you
thing?
said
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah.
There was a
That's
whole
what we
thing.
need to be doing.
Right, right.
Yeah. So talk about it because
No, you could talk. You brought it
no,
up.
but it's your idea. You actually understand it because I don't. You said it. I didn't. You know.
What do you mean?
Do
What do you mean? What don't you understand? This
you
is not even our dynamic. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
about a line? You spoke about
Wait,
what you did in the
it's
family
Esther.
constellation.
All
I have a
right.
question. I could not figure out how to unmute myself. You're like, nobody ever
Oh,
has questions. I'm like, why can't I unmute? Okay. And my question is, um, I'm very aware of this in like, because I have a family therapist, and then also in my own life, there's this been a dynamic that replays. And my question is that I know the template that works, right? The more you could call them like the super skills of a good listener, right? Like you're affirming, you're validated, you're validating, you're empathizing, all those things. But in a lot of cases for myself and also a lot of like women who find some level of independence and theoretically could function on their own, they've sort of gone out of feeling like they were super squashed by society or their past, at least on a material level. There is this like fear that, oh, if I give this unconditional space, number one, what if I don't get it back ever? And I give this and somebody just takes and takes and takes from me, number one. And then number two, what if I do that and then I feel like I betrayed myself and I'm the person who put myself in a situation that, had no boundaries and was ridiculous and enabled somebody to abuse me. Like there's a lot of fear of, number one, putting oneself in a position that to be used and also giving and then never getting it back. And I feel like that comes up, and that's where a lot of the defensiveness that I see really comes up from. So it's hard to like that piece. I know like psychoanalysts would call it resistance, where the kind of therapy I do, I call it like a disadvantage of the change, is that you have to hold those emotions without reacting on the impulse and like agreeing and then making a demand subsequently. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious energetically what your take is and like how you would make sense of that. I know it's another dynamic. It's like a push-pull dynamic that a lot of people have around safety. So it's hard to work through. It feels like it takes forever.
So this actually leads into what I was trying to get Jodi to talk about. Okay. Right, because Jodi, you were
there. I helped then.
Great, because when we spoke earlier, you were saying, and I was kind of I was doing other things, but you just kind of mentioned, so we didn't go deep in, we didn't dive into it, and I said we'll explore that in tea time. So what was it about aligning? What were in the family constellation? She took the woman and she put the divine feminine.
No, it's the idea that. Yeah, but it's not the divine feminine. So the divine feminine is sitting here being like, I love you, I love you, I love you. And Esther, this is the thing too, is like women want to just create these beautiful spaces and women want to kind of be in flow and women have all these things. Now, the men have been this whole time being like, how can I get these love from women? But they don't also want love from women. They also want the safety and the security and support for themselves, because that's what men are supposed to kind of do, right? And they also feel like because their fathers, and here's the problem, it's this break in this divine masculine line, meaning because they have an issue. What's their issue? Sorry. What's their issue? Their issue is that they themselves had a weakness in their line, meaning their father, their grandfather, their great grandfather, somebody else, especially in the Jewish trauma, but not just Jewish trauma, any trauma, right? There's always been war. There's always been somebody not feeling safe. And there's always been a man that's somewhat feeling guilty or frustrated or have been held accountable for something and been made to feel like some sort of a failure because he's not stepping up to doing what he's supposed to be doing. And so actually, if we can take the fathers and take the father,
he's not stepping up, or he can't step up.
Or he can't. Well, of course. I mean, he's not doing that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it like the situations on this planet, as much as women get frustrated in that way, for men, like men it's been a rough deal. It's been like a rough go on the planet for a long time. Like, not to be whatever, but to be a man isn't really that great either, right? Because there's this constant thing of how am I protecting? How am I supporting? How am I keeping safe? How am I keeping secure? Because there's always one father somewhere who ends up being a victim, right? And so you're just like, oh God, like what am I supposed to be doing? I can't protect my family from this. I can't make enough money for this. I can't do that. Like, meaning the whole system there's this inadequacy that exists in the system itself. And so then they show up to their wife or to their family where they themselves feel like they don't have enough or they're not enough, and then they get frustrated and then they might take it out on somebody else, on a wife, on a kid, on themselves. But it stems from like their own father and their own father and their own father, who also feel inadequate, and who, because of that own disappointment from their own heart center, they also feel frustrated and they feel like they're not enough. So in this family constellation, and the energy work that we were talking about doing is actually taking a whole line of fathers and then connecting them from their father to their father to their father, all the way back, and actually taking like the divine masculine, which is that like beautiful, protective, incredible, what we think about when we've been talking about as a in the world being like God, 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 like where is God? It's like everybody's kind of like doubting God, but God kind of holds that divine masculine, right? And God is like here to
The way
protect you.
God is portrayed holds that divine
Exactly. The
masculine.
way
Yeah,
that people want God to
yeah,
show up in their life
yeah.
is for protection and for safety and security and
It's
support.
like this amazing, perfect father figure. That's the way people
Exactly. Exactly.
see
Because
God.
everybody knew, but that was such a great way, by the way. Like, wasn't that the best way to sell God to people? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, think about like, okay, like the churches or like religion. It's like, we're not keeping you safe, but don't worry if you believe in this like all-powerful male figure who's there, who's going to give you all of these things. And all you have to do is kind of like give him what he wants. Then maybe you could be protected. It's like this horrible system that was kind of like created, which is not what God is actually. And that's why so many people have such anger and resistance to God in the first place, because it's like it was created in this like convoluted way, this patriarchal God, because anyway, it sounds horrible to look
That's a
at.
different rant. That's a different
Yeah,
rant for a
I
different
can't go.
time.
But anyway, we were just going
There's
to
like
connect.
not enough teen here for that.
Yeah, not enough tea. It's like you need like the whole tea party for like the Boston Tea Party to like.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so let's connect. So what were we doing? We're energetically kind of like setting up as a collective the divine masculine, the men, linking them to their fathers throughout so that they feel like secure, strong. So it's almost
Yeah,
like creating a line of
yeah.
men.
So create that. Yeah,
And you can also imagine, like, if you're kind of sitting here, participating, listening, you can actually almost imagine that, what that looks like, to have a male in your life, whoever male that is, and show up as you feel like somebody, they are somebody who's now supported by their father and their father and their father. And so you're going to imagine actually a whole line of men that are support and that are behind that man that's in your life, and feel like they're actually getting the support and the help and everything that they need, and the heart centered and the connection and everything. So it's not just you supporting them, it's actually they're connected to a whole chain of men, of the masculine, that are behind them.
a whole chain of competence,
Yes,
confident,
confident, responsible,
strong, powerful. Yeah,
protective,
response.
yeah,
Yeah,
powerful, heart-centered. Exactly. All the things that are coming from the divine masculine is like feeding then into all of these men, which is safety, security, love, trust, like you just want to kind of like melt into that figure. And they're getting that from that divine masculine. And so that's what we can kind of set up,
you want
Tila.
to kind of create that. Yeah, at least because once we're creating that in our mind, we're actually creating this vibration, and this vibration, we're strengthening this vibration, we're strengthening this resonance, and then that makes more room for that in the world. That's about manifesting.
Yeah. So now that that's kind of, and every time, and the healing is that every time we feel frustrated or we wonder like how can our sons, how can our whoever it is who's not showing up in the way that we want, it's almost like we can actually imagine connecting them to a all the way back a line of fathers that then connects to that divine masculine, and all of the traits and all of the attributes and everything that you want the divine masculine to do, it ends up kind of like pouring down and coming through the line. So we're actually bringing this safety and security and love and trust and all of these things behind. And so that's kind of
Yeah,
shifts.
that's good, and that looks good,
Yeah.
because yeah,
Yeah. And all of you can feel into that too. Like if you're sitting there and you're kind of, it's a really good practice because ultimately now that this is created, right, then we want to believe that we could tap into that whenever we can. So instead of feeling frustrated and annoyed when we look at somebody, whoever that male is that doesn't show up, you can just kind of shift back and think to your head, imagine them connected back to the whole line of men that are before them. So then they're able to show up and feel supported. And
And the
then
idea is that
they're,
we are also let's create also the divine the line of women and connect them to the divine feminine. So there's this balance.
yeah. So now you can imagine yourself, maybe if you have a daughter, she's in front of you, yourself, a mother, and you feel all the women behind you who feel like they have been supporting you this whole time. And there's love and there's trust and there's just like intuition and creativity and all of these beautiful things that come up through the divine feminine. And you might even take a moment and you might notice, and this is such a
And
great,
all these women have been supported by these great, amazing men. So
yeah,
that's also a good component
yeah,
to put in.
yeah, exactly. So you can imagine yourself being supported by a male and a female who are constantly giving you love and support. And then your mother, you can imagine now that they're connected, her mother and father, giving her love. And so we're basically like creating exponentially like this love that's kind of showing up through the line.
That's balanced.
Yeah.
So go on,
Yeah.
but you were doing a great
Balance.
job.
Oh, balance. No, I just to feel into it. It feels like
The
really
whole
good.
thing, do the take just create that line.
Yeah, so it's you and then the mother and father, your mother and father feeding into you and your mother
But
and her
first
mother
let's
and
but
father.
let's create first the feminine. First let's create the feminine, then we'll join the feminine and the masculine
Okay.
energetically. So talk
Okay.
about it and I'll do it energetically. You
Okay.
do a good
So
job talking.
okay, okay. Thanks. Okay, so let's say you. So let's say we take you, we take, let's say, any girls even around you. Like I have a daughter, so it's her birthday tomorrow. So yay, I can take her. And I can take her and imagine that like, and me behind her and my mother behind me. And this is what you're going to imagine, this whole line of women behind you and feel about how that feels that you're not alone, but you're actually like a link in a chain that's behind you. And you're constantly going back and further and further. And there's this incredible line of your grandmother, then your great grandmother, your great great grandmother, and all the way back. And you start to feel actually a little bit stronger in your legs and in your feet and even in your heart center.
And the idea is that these women, these are strong women, but they strong, there's a difference between being a strong woman and I'm strong because I'm alone and I'm strong and I'm pushing through. That's one type of strength. But imagine that these women are strong and they have a supportive male in the background. So they're allowed to bring in a feminine type of strength and power. Okay, so they bring this feminine component of strength and power, and they don't have to overcompensate when there's no male. Okay, because that's a different kind of version of power. So I think it's very important to acknowledge that and think about that vibration. Does
Yeah,
that sound?
yeah, it's no, it's great. It's just, but it's just women as because it's connecting to this divine feminine. It's just like this really beautiful feminine vibe that's kind of coming from this divine
Yeah.
feminine. And it goes straight down the line and it kind of goes, and you can see a color or an image or something that you feel going in through your body. And that's why do I feel this pain though? Maybe
Where?
under like my left side, in my heart, I don't know, my rib
It's not yours. It's your mom's. Let me clear that.
cage. So, and that's
Speaking of.
speaking of, and that's the thing also is like to look at the resistance. And even as any one of you are kind of even doing that exercise, you might even feel resistance. So the idea is that like anything that's coming up, because for women, we've had such resistance throughout time, right? Oh, we can't totally be feminine. Oh, we can't kind of do our thing. Oh, we can't kind of like relax into because of what Tehilla was saying. So, so we kind of just want to imagine though that we're linked to that divine feminine. And then the men were already set up in the divine masculine with the divine masculine behind. And now they're kind of set up in such a way so that we can actually stop for a second and look and face this row that we just created energetically of the women with the men that are supporting them, kind of standing next to them and looking at those chains of people and feeling those links and how it extends and expands so much beyond us. And we can almost have gratitude for all of those people who have been living and connecting to this divine masculine and this divine feminine,
Why almost gratitude and not gratitude?
because nobody's at gratitude. We can. Are you at
Okay.
gratitude?
I'd like to think so.
Okay, fine. We can have gratitude, a lot of gratitude, because it feels like we can't. Maybe we could clear it.
It's not yours. Let me see. It's a past. Let me see. It's a past life thing. It's not your past life thing. It's a collective thing. It's
See, that's why it's coming up. So,
great. Yeah. So great.
okay. Because that's why we can't have gratitude. You know why? Because we can't sink into it because everybody's so afraid that like, oh God, there's going to be another horrible thing that's going to come up. So how can I even say thank you to this because it's filled with so much shit that has like happened.
Not yours. Not yours again. Let's see. Your death. Yeah.
Great. So thank you for that. So let's see, anything else?
No, I think we should bring them together
Yeah,
in a better process. Like I'm actually seeing bringing them together in this like double helix kind of thing.
great.
Great. So it's good. How's that looking?
I don't know. I feel like I want to like feel into it or something. Uh,
You've got so much resistance. Why do you have all that resistance? Let me see. It's not yours. It's family. Okay, now try feeling into it.
there's still something. It's like
Yeah,
constriction in the chest. There's
yeah,
survival thing.
yeah, not yours. Let me clear it. Okay,
Now feeling
that's
stuff
good.
in my neck. You're not done. It's like a lot of work.
No, it's a labor of love. Let's move on.
Okay. My neck.
Past life thing. Yeah,
um, the neck thing. And now something like really interesting happens, which is something.
yeah, I can see.
What is that?
Something's trying to come in. Wait,
Yeah.
I'm
But it
looking
feels like
back,
it
but
can't.
yeah, right, because there's a block, like a cerebral block. Let me clear that. Let's see, it's a collective thing. Okay,
It's
great.
like
Past
the
the
collective.
brain. Wait, we're moving down. Now it's stuck in the neck. The throat. What is it? It's also a collective thing. Yeah, okay, moving it down. Can you feel it moving down? I'm moving it down.
No, I can
Down,
just
down,
see it.
down.
It looks
Chest
like it.
again.
Yeah, keep going. No, I can't feel it.
Open the heart. It's all collective stuff. So let's move it down, down. Ah, great. And we've hit the root center, which is all about safety, security, and trust. Always comes back to the root center,
Yeah.
hence the name root center. So let's see. Great, 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 great. Yeah. Okay, we've got good flow. How's
Yeah,
that?
that's great. That's great. I have a little
That's
bit of
good.
thing in my eyes and my something here though.
Um,
Sinuses, eyes, something.
it's not yours. Your dad's.
The neck. Okay. But
Okay.
that's okay. The big thing was that it was like this whole thing that had to be opened. Because the
Yeah.
collective had such this heart center, it was like this closed thing. It actually felt like you were like unzipping. It's like everybody was like wearing this whole suit and it was like unzipping, like all suit from like the top of my head down. It's like, let me just open that. So that's good. Yeah. Yeah, that's better. I actually
Maybe tomorrow there'll be an end to the war in the Ukraine. Ukraine, Russia,
Well,
who
I
knows?
don't think so. We're not there yet, but it's okay. Maybe there'll be a little bit of a softening, a little bit
Step
of an opening.
towards.
One day at a time, it's a
Yeah.
journey. But anyway, I think that this is so good. And like the more people kind of sit with that, I don't know, it doesn't feel great still. I still feel like I have
You
other.
know, these issues are kind of big. It's not something that can be
I
resolved
know.
in one
I
tea
know.
time,
I know. I know. I know. Okay, well, I think that this is like a good start. And I think that I know I still feel it in my back. Okay, great. Now there's all these other things. I feel like now I have more
Yeah.
problems. Fine.
That's sounds pretty. You sound pretty human.
This is Esther. This is what I was talking about, where like from my model, it's the disadvantages of change, where like when you make a shift somewhere, you were in some way protecting yourself from looking at something else. So
Exactly.
then you have to pace change because otherwise people then are like, oh, it's the change that caused the problems, but really there's often an identity and a skill and an emotion
Sure.
and like
For
a
sure.
backlash in their system for them being a new, so like it's interesting I'm glad to be validated that like it's very complicated to help people overcome these because each stage requires then up leveling, like, your up our the way we exist and express ourselves. It doesn't just like knock out a whole family system once you know what you should be
100%.
doing. Yeah.
100%.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And that's why now I'm like, oh, great, you started all these other problems for me
well, that,
that we get to talk about, not on tea time, but somebody else. What's
yeah,
coming up? Why does that happen?
yeah,
But it's true. It's true. And that's what we're constantly working on is that we humans, this is constantly what we're working on, in order to even get to this point on tea time, it's like so much work had to be done to get to this specific place, from us, from you, from the collective, from
I
everybody.
right.
think life is like an onion, It's got, you have all these layers, and most of the time it makes you cry. So
Yes, but some people do really prefer to preserve a familiar, traumatic,
Of course.
abusive cycle than to change because at least it's predictable.
Of course. Of
So,
course. There was this
yeah.
great Instagram, Esther, of some woman who's like, I wanted to keep, it was so funny. I watched it so many times. She's like, I had this boyfriend and he was horrible, but I chose to keep him because I would rather this horrible boyfriend knowing exactly why he was horrible than dating somebody else, going through all this disappointment and finding a way that he was also horrible too. It's like,
Right.
okay, like here's the problem.
That's
At least I
better
know.
the devil you
that's
know.
Right.
that's the ultimate self-destructing control mechanism. But yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. It's
Yeah.
true. So I think all
Yeah.
these things, and that's why also you should know, like that's why when we do like the work that Tehilla and I do here, but also like, we have these subscription groups, and the reason for these containers for all of these things is because like, first of all, these are issues, and the reason why we want to do more things, and the reason why we do. People go to work on this all the time, is because you need to be held and supported in the journey, however it looks. And, so like for example, we have the subscription thing for the 1 month for the women, and it has the class and the women and an energy clearing. But then we were talking about like just the other day, and we're like, well, kids need something, and we're developing like a whole kids thing for energy clearing. That's also going to be with classes and energy clearing, because every energy clearing then needs growth. Like you need the energetic, and then you need the cerebral. You always are kind of like growing and clearing and supporting and clearing and supporting.
You have to have like a cognitive. You have to go through a cognitive and a change in, in awareness, in consciousness, to move forward.
Yeah. So that's actually what we constantly hope to do through tea time and through class. And then everybody has, thank God, like their own other supports and systems, and
And
so
also, the divine always, makes sure that reality pushes you forward.
right.
Either you grow either from inspiration or desperation, but
Yeah.
either way you grow.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at. And so hopefully we'll have more growth this week. Oh gosh, sounds exhausting. So
Or Hanukkah, either way we're going to grow, either from the sufganiyot and all the oil and everything that we eat. It's all about expansion. So something's going to
exactly.
expand either way.
Exactly. So we're looking forward to that. And thanks to everybody who joined us for today. Anything
Yeah,
else? Or I
thank
think
you.
we're good.
I think we're good. Yeah,
Yeah, this was a lot. Okay.
great job.
So thanks everyone, you too, for coming and showing up and listening. And I'll post the recording, and because there is a recording. Like 50
Thank
minutes
God.
of this, thank God. Somewhere there's a recording. And if you can always like connect from Live the Passion Project, or now we have that website and the WhatsApp group and all those things. So looking forward to connecting and sharing more light with everybody. Bye.
Right.